They came for the money. They did not know he would leave everything to the one who came for love. The law firm of Wellington and Sons breathed centuries of old money and well-guarded secrets. The main conference room was a sanctuary of quiet power, dark mahogany panels that soaked up light like sponges, a conference table so polished it reflected the anxiety in the faces above it, velvet drapes that whispered stories of wills read and fortunes transferred. The Montgomery family arrived in calculated waves, each member claiming space with the precision of someone who had rehearsed this moment for years. Robert, the eldest, sat at the head of the table as if the seat already belonged to him by divine right. His Italian suit cost more than some of the staff's cars, every perfect fold telling a story of unearned privilege. Vanessa, the middle child, entered perfumed with ambition and Chanel No. 5, her eyes moving over the room as if she were already estimating what each object would fetch at the auction of the estate. Her husband, Charles, followed a few steps behind, a human accessory whose only function was to confirm her existence on paperwork. Jonathan, the youngest, tried to look indifferent while checking the share price of Montgomery Enterprises on his smartwatch. His hands trembled slightly, not from grief over his father's death, but from anticipation of the millions he believed would finally be his. The grandchildren occupied the side chairs like extras in a play they did not fully understand, but whose ending promised generous rewards. Tiffany, 18, was already planning which Porsche she would buy. Brandon, 22, imagined how he could finally drop out of college and devote himself full-time to his projects. The air was dense with unspoken expectation. Dollars were breathed in that room, every sight carried the sweet scent of unearned inheritances, of bank accounts about to change hands, of lives about to be transformed by signatures on paper. Meanwhile, across town, in a small apartment that smelled of homemade soup and old books, Isabella prepared for the day. Her hands, used to holding trembling fingers and fixing pillows, shook as she buttoned her one good dress. She was not thinking about millions or mansions, but about the absence of the man she had cared for over 3 years, the stories he told about building his empire from nothing, the nights she read to him until they both fell asleep in their armchairs, the comfortable silence they shared when words were no longer necessary. At the firm, Senior Attorney Theodore Wellington entered carrying a folder that seemed to weigh more than he did. His seasoned eyes traveled the room, taking in each face, every expression of barely masked greed. He knew what was about to happen, not only the transfer of a fortune, but the collapse of a world built on illusions of entitlement. The bronze wall clocks marked the hours with funerary solemnity. Outside, a fine rain began to fall over the city, as if the sky itself wept not for the death of Edward Montgomery, but for the blindness of those he left behind. No one in the room noticed the irony. They had gathered to receive what they believed was rightfully theirs, oblivious to the truth that the real inheritance had already been given, day after day, to a woman who had never asked for anything in return. They came for the money, wearing their finest masks of respectful sorrow, unaware that the man they buried had understood a fundamental truth: love cannot be inherited, only earned. And as they waited for the lawyer to break the seal on the will, none of them imagined that the words to follow would not divide a fortune, but reveal the price of valuing gold over affection. While they counted the millions they would inherit, he counted the visits he never received. While the Montgomery family breathed the heavy air of expectation at the law firm, the ghosts of absence moved silently through the empty mansion where Edward had lived his final years. Every room of the $10 million property held memories of solitude that no wealth could fill. The grand ballroom, with its crystal chandelier that cost more than Isabella's home, had witnessed countless Christmases when Edward dined alone, the mahogany table for 20 serving a single man whose family preferred to spend the holidays at Caribbean resorts. The rare wine bottles remained unopened, the fine porcelain plates stored away, the music of the grand piano covered by a thin layer of dust. In Edward's study, framed photographs told a story of gradual abandonment. Pictures of young Robert perched on his father's shoulders had been replaced by formal shots from business meetings. Vanessa, who once sent childish drawings to her father's office, now sent only bills to pay. Jonathan, who had promised to visit every weekend when he left for college, appeared only on Thanksgiving, and even then, always in a hurry to reach the next party. The statistics of Edward's loneliness spoke louder than any accusation. 247 days since Robert's last visit. 89 birthdays collectively forgotten. 37 unanswered calls in the final week of his life. 0 grandchildren who knew his favorite dish. Meanwhile, Isabella arrived at the law firm, her quiet presence a brutal contrast to the family's display. She wore neither expensive brands nor glittering jewelry. Her worth lay in the eyes that had witnessed Edward's hardest nights, in the hands that held his when illness turned them unsteady, in the heart that kept beating for him when his began to fail. Her simple dress felt almost offensive in that sea of Italian silk and Egyptian cotton, while the Montgomerys mentally calculated their shares. Isabella remembered the small things that truly mattered, the way Edward smiled when she brought his favorite tea, the stories he told about building his empire from nothing, the tears he tried to hide when yet another birthday passed without a single call. Robert looked at Isabella with disdain as she entered, as if she were an employee who had forgotten her place. He did not know that this woman knew his father better than he did. She knew Edward had feared the dark in his final months, that his favorite food was homemade apple pie, not the foie gras the family always brought, that he wept quietly on the phone after yet another perfunctory conversation with one of his children. Vanessa adjusted her diamond necklace, unaware that each sparkling stone represented a visit she canceled, a dinner she postponed, a moment she decided was less important than her social obligations. While they waited for the lawyer, the Montgomerys saw a golden future, world travel, bigger yachts, faster cars. Isabella saw only the emptiness Edward left behind and the responsibility to honor the memory of a man who, despite all his wealth, died with a heart broken by the indifference of those he loved most. The clocks continued their relentless tick, marking not only passing time but time lost, the years the family would never recover, the I love yous never spoken, the hugs never given. And in the heavy silence of the conference room, each member of the family carried the weight of missed chances, completely unaware of the storm approaching, not a storm of rage or revenge, but of raw truth about what it truly means to deserve not only a fortune, but a legacy of love. The lawyer began to read, and every word was a knife in the heart of greed. Theodore Wellington took his place at the conference table with the solemnity of a priest about to perform a sacred rite. His hands, marked by decades of holding papers that changed destinies, opened the folder with a deliberate slowness that made each family member hold their breath. The sound of the zipper echoed through the room like thunder announcing an oncoming storm. Robert leaned forward, his fingers white from gripping the table's edge. His eyes shone with the anticipation of finally taking full control of the Montgomery empire. He already pictured himself in his father's office, signing papers with the same Mont-Blanc pen Edward had used to build his fortune. Vanessa shifted in her chair, a spark of excitement along her spine as she imagined the possibilities that would open. The art gallery in Paris she always dreamed of owning, the family jewels finally hers, the freedom to never again ask permission to spend whatever she wished. Jonathan tried to maintain a neutral expression, but a slight tremor in his lower lip betrayed his anxiety. He calculated how much he would need to pay off his gambling debts and still maintain the luxurious lifestyle to which he had grown accustomed. The grandchildren traded thrilled looks, their smartphones ready to post about their sudden rise to millionaire status. Tiffany was already choosing designers for a new wardrobe. Brandon pictured how he would finally impress his friends with a car worth more than their homes. Theodore cleared his throat, the sound slicing the silence like breaking glass. As executor of the last will and testament of Edward James Montgomery, I will now proceed with the reading of his final wishes. His voice was grave, impersonal, as if announcing the weather rather than deciding the future of tens of millions of dollars. The first part was routine: donations to charities, payments to loyal staff, provisions regarding minor properties. The family listened with growing impatience, hungry for the section that truly mattered, the division of the principal fortune. Then came the moment they had all awaited. Theodore adjusted his glasses and his voice took on a different tone, heavier, charged with meaning. As for my remaining assets, including majority ownership in Montgomery Enterprises, properties, investments, and liquid holdings, totaling approximately $85 million. The room seemed to shrink, each person leaning in further like flowers turning to the sun. Robert already felt the weight of power in his hands. Vanessa prepared herself for celebration. Jonathan drew a deep breath, like a diver about to enter deep waters. I leave exactly $0 to my son, Robert Alexander Montgomery. The silence that followed was so absolute they could hear the fluorescent lights hum. Robert blinked, as if his ears had betrayed his understanding. His once confident face began to lose color slowly, like an old photograph fading in the sun. Theodore continued, relentless. $0 to my daughter, Vanessa Montgomery Harrington. Vanessa let out a sound between a disbelieving laugh and a moan of pain. Her hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with pure shock. And $0 to my son, Jonathan Michael Montgomery. Jonathan simply stopped breathing for a moment, his mind refusing to process the words he had just heard. His world, carefully built on the expectation of inheritance, crumbled in slow motion. One by one, Theodore listed every family member, sons and daughters-in-law, grandchildren, each name followed by the same devastating verdict: $0. 0 properties. 0 shares. 0 inheritance. When the final name ended, the room erupted into chaos. Robert stood so fast his chair toppled with a dull thud. This is some kind of sick joke? His voice came out shrill, loaded with rage and disbelief. Then Theodore paused, his eyes finding Isabella's, who sat silently in the corner, so pale she seemed about to faint. And as for the entirety of my remaining estate, Theodore continued, his voice cutting through the commotion like a blade, I leave it in full to Isabella Maria Rodriguez, who showed me more love and dedication in 3 years than my own family did in 3 decades. Silence returned, deeper and heavier than before. Every gaze turned to Isabella, who seemed to shrink under the weight of so many looks, shock, anger, incomprehension. And in that moment, in the space between one breath and the next, each member of the Montgomery family understood a terrible truth, that they had underestimated not only the man they buried, but the price of trading their affection for his fortune. And that the inheritance they truly lost could not be measured in dollars, but in seconds of attention they never gave, in hugs they never offered, in love they never showed. The family that never had time for him now had all the time in the world to complain. The silence after the announcement was so dense it felt like a physical texture, a mist of shock that wrapped itself around everyone in the room. For an instant that stretched into eternity, no one moved, no one breathed, no one seemed capable of processing the reality that had just drenched them like a bucket of ice water. Then, like a volcano erupting after centuries of pressure, the room exploded into absolute chaos. Robert broke the spell first, his once pale face flooded with a red wave of pure fury. He rose with such force the conference table shuddered, his clenched fists striking the polished wood with a report that echoed like a gunshot. "This is impossible!" he shouted, his voice warped by rage. "My father was not in a state of mind to make this decision. He was manipulated, coerced." Vanessa joined the chorus, her earlier tears of grief transformed into tears of indignation. 8 years of law school and he leaves everything to a caregiver? The pause before caregiver carried the full contempt of her social class for those who work with their hands. Jonathan simply laughed, a dry, humorless sound that seemed more frightening than any scream. 85 million for a woman who does not even know how to use a knife and fork properly? Is this some kind of senile joke? The grandchildren, who moments earlier dreamed of sports cars and world travel, now vented their frustration in the raw language of their generation. Tiffany grabbed her phone, not to post about new wealth, but to search frantically for how to contest a will. Brandon cursed loudly enough to make the lawyer blush. Theodore Wellington stood still within the emotional storm, his hands resting calmly on the documents. He watched with the patience of someone who had seen countless families shatter over money, knowing the tempest must run its course before reason could return. As the family hurled ever more absurd accusations, witchcraft, emotional blackmail, mental incompetence, forgery, Isabella remained seated in her corner, growing smaller beneath the weight of the fury aimed at her. Her eyes were wide with shock, her trembling hands laced in her lap as if praying for invisibility. Robert thrust an accusing finger at Isabella. "Her! She bewitched my father in his final days. Filled his head with stories about our neglect. Turned him against his own family." Vanessa nodded fiercely. "Remember when she would not let us see father alone? She said he was tired. She was pushing us away, systematically." The irony was as thick as the anger in the air. The family that never found time to visit now complained of being kept away. The same children who forgot birthdays and holidays now claimed to know their father's true wishes. Theodore finally raised a hand, a small gesture that somehow stilled the room. "The will was drafted 6 months ago," he said calmly. Edward was perfectly lucid, as attested by 3 independent physicians. And the evidence of his decision is abundant. But the family was not interested in facts or legality. They wanted restoration of what they believed was theirs by divine right, the fortune they treated not as a reward for love, but as a prize for simply existing as Montgomerys. As the argument raged, each family member revealed more of their true character than they would ever admit. Robert spoke of rights of primogeniture as if he lived in the 18th century. Vanessa invoked the good name of the family as if Isabella were a stain on their lineage. Jonathan threatened lawsuits that would devour the estate and legal fees, preferring that no one receive anything rather than see a stranger with the money. And through it all, Isabella stayed silent, witnessing the terrible transformation of people she had thought cultured and refined into monsters of greed. She saw not only the loss of a fortune in their eyes, but the loss of their own humanity, and she understood, with painful clarity, why Edward had done what he did. The true inheritance the family was destroying was not financial, but moral, and as they shouted and threatened, every word was another nail in the coffin of any chance at redemption they might have had. He knew they would come for the money, so he left a message worth more than his entire fortune. The chaos reached its peak when Robert threatened to sue not only Isabella but the law firm itself, his bloodshot eyes reflecting a fury that bordered on irrational. Vanessa sobbed hysterically, claiming her father had suffered from senile dementia in recent months, an accusation Theodore knew to be false from the medical reports in his file. Jonathan repeated like a mantra that he would contest the will to his last cent, even if it meant the entire fortune would be consumed by legal costs. At that very moment of maximum tension, Theodore did something unexpected. Without raising his voice or making a dramatic gesture, he simply walked to a discreet panel on the wall and pressed a button. A retractable screen descended silently from the ceiling, its black, impersonal surface a stark contrast to the raw emotion filling the room. Edward anticipated this reaction. Theodore said, his calm voice slicing through the turmoil like a hot knife through butter. And he left specific instructions for this situation. The room fell silent again, this time out of morbid curiosity, not respect. Every eye fixed on the screen, each Montgomery breathing as if the video might contain a retraction, an explanation that this was merely a test of character. Then the image appeared. Edward Montgomery seated in his favorite library, wearing the red velvet robe everyone recognized. He looked more fragile than in his last public appearances, but his eyes shone with a lucidity that disproved any claim of incompetence. His aged hands rested firmly on the arms of the leather chair. "If you are watching this," Edward began, his voice a little weaker than usual but carrying unquestionable authority, "it means Theodore has just read my will. And it means you are reacting exactly as I predicted, with anger, disbelief, and a sense of entitlement you never earned." Robert made a sound of disdain, but his eyes stayed on the screen, as if waiting for his father to look directly at him through time. Edward went on, his gaze seeming to pierce the soul of every person in the room. "Robert, my son, you visited me 4 times in the last 2 years. Each visit lasted an average of 47 minutes. You spent more time on your phone during those visits than speaking to me. Your last question about my health was 13 months ago." Robert paled visibly, the precise numbers hitting with a force that vague accusations never could. "Vanessa, my dear daughter." Edward gave a sad smile. "You canceled our birthday dinner last year because you had a charity gala. I hope the irony did not escape you. You raised about $50,000 for strangers while your own father dined alone." Vanessa covered her face, her perfect nails pressing into pale skin. "Jonathan." Edward's voice deepened. "You asked me for money 23 times in the last 5 years. You never asked me for time. You never asked me for advice. Only money." One by one, Edward addressed each family member, citing specific dates of absences, missed calls, broken promises. Each accusation came backed by details so exact that denying them was impossible. Then the image on the screen changed, showing photographs of Isabella caring for Edward, helping him walk in the garden, reading to him, laughing with him at dinner. In every photo, Edward's face held a peace and happiness no family member had witnessed in person. This woman. Edward's voice echoed over the images, spent more time with me in 3 months than all of you together in 3 years. She listened when no one else did. She saw me as a man, not a checkbook. She loved me when I had nothing to offer but my company. Edward's final words fell like stones in a quiet lake. Who loves me when I have nothing deserves everything when I have something. And you showed me that the only value I held for you was what sat in my bank account. When the video ended and the screen went dark, the silence that followed was unlike any before. It was not the silence of shock or rage, but the silence of shame, deep, visceral, deserved. And in the corner, Isabella wept quietly, not for the millions she had inherited, but for the lonely man who had finally found a way to speak the truth he had carried for years, that the most valuable wealth is not held in banks, but in hearts that love us without condition. The fortune they craved was no longer theirs, but the inheritance that truly mattered had already been lost. The silence that followed the video was of a different quality from any that had filled the room before. It was not the silence of expectation, nor of anger, nor even of shock. It was the silence of an incontestable truth, a truth so heavy it seemed to alter the room's gravity, making each person feel denser, more aware of their own moral failure. Robert stayed motionless, his hands still on the table, but now stripped of indignation's force. The numbers his father cited, for visits in 2 years, 47 minutes on average, echoed in his head like a final verdict. He tried to remember what he had done during those 4 visits that seemed so important at the time, but his memory offered only blurred images of checking his phone, talking business, always rushing to the next commitment. Vanessa no longer cried. Her face was dry, her eyes fixed on the empty space where her father's image had been moments earlier. The memory of the canceled birthday dinner returned with painful clarity. She remembered telling her assistant to send expensive flowers as compensation, as if flowers could replace presents, as if money could buy time. Jonathan stared at his own hands as if seeing them for the first time. 23 requests for money in 5 years. The number was so specific, so indisputable, that it left no room for self-deception. He realized he had never called his father just to talk, never visited without a financial reason, never showed genuine interest in the man behind the checkbook. The grandchildren, who moments earlier vented in the raw language of their generation, now looked like teenagers again, confused, ashamed, finally understanding that they had inherited not only a name, but a legacy of emotional neglect. Tiffany remembered the excuses she made to avoid visiting her grandfather, choosing friends instead. Brandon recalled how he always asked for expensive gifts, never asking how his grandfather was. Theodore Wellington watched with a blend of professionalism and compassion. He had seen many families react to shocking wills, but few undergo such complete catharsis. Rage melted like ice in the sun, revealing the arid landscape of guilt underneath. Isabella broke the silence, her voice leaving her as a whisper that somehow filled the room. "I do not want the money," she said, each word carrying a sincerity no Montgomery possessed. "I only wanted him to know he was not alone." The simplicity of the statement was a final blow to the family's conscience. While they fought for millions, she grieved for a man's loneliness. While they tallied financial losses, she mourned the loss of a person. Robert moved first. He did not turn to Isabella with anger or accusation, but with genuine perplexity. You truly care about him?" The question came not as a challenge, but as a desperate search for understanding. Isabella only nodded, her tears finally breaking the dam she had held. He was a good person. Lonely, but good. And everyone deserves not to die alone. In those few words, the entire complexity of the situation distilled to its purest essence. It was not about money or inheritance, rights or deserts. It was about the basic dignity of not being forgotten, the fundamental human comfort of knowing someone cares. Vanessa rose slowly, her once proud posture now bent beneath the weight of comprehension. She walked to the window and looked out at the city, at the world where she had always chased what she believed mattered, only to discover she had neglected the only thing that truly did. One by one, each Montgomery began to grasp the true magnitude of their loss. It was not financial. The money they would never receive was only numbers on statements. The real inheritance they lost was intangible, a father's respect, the wisdom he could have shared, the moments they could have had, the love they could have given and received. And a shame wrapped around them like a heavy cloak, each understood that the greatest poverty is not a lack of money, but a lack of genuine connection. That the most valuable wealth can neither be inherited nor bought, only earned through time, attention, and love freely given. And that some lessons arrive too late, when the person who mattered most is already gone, taking with him not only a fortune, but the chance to become the family they could have been. She did not want the money, but she accepted the responsibility to honor the love he always deserved. The silence of shame gradually gave way to a different quiet, the hush of deep reflection, of acknowledging past failings and searching for a way forward. Isabella remained seated, her tears drying as she contemplated the weight that had just fallen upon her shoulders. $85 million was a sum so absurd that her mind could not process it as real money. It was an abstraction, a number on paper representing not wealth, but the absolute trust of a man who believed in her when his own family did not. Robert broke the impasse, his voice now carrying a humility unimaginable an hour earlier. "Isabella," he began, measuring each syllable, "my father was right. We failed him. We failed as a family." The admission came with difficulty, as if the words were physically painful to speak. Vanessa stepped forward, her high heels sounding soft against the thick carpet. "The money is yours," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "And after what we saw, after what we heard, we cannot contest his will. It would dishonor his memory even more." Jonathan only nodded, his eyes still fixed on the floor as if searching for answers in the weave of the rug. The arrogance that once defined him had evaporated, leaving a man who finally grasped the cost of valuing things over people. Then Isabella did something no one expected. She stood, her knees trembling, and walked to the front where Theodore still stood. "I cannot accept this," she said, her voice gaining strength with each word. "Not like this. Money was never important to me. What mattered was Edward, his company, his stories, his friendship." She paused, drew a breath, and continued. "But refusing the inheritance would disrespect his final wishes. So I accept, on one condition." Everyone held their breath, wondering what condition a woman who never wanted wealth might impose. "I will use all of it to create the Edward Montgomery Foundation," she announced, her words ringing with conviction from the deepest part of her. "An organization devoted to helping lonely elders, offering companionship, care, dignity in their final years. To ensure no one else needs to die feeling forgotten the way Edward did." The impact was immediate and profound. Robert reacted first. I would like to help," he said, surprised by his own voice. "Not with money, you clearly do not need that. But with my time. with my business experience. Vanessa joined in, her tears returning, but now for a different reason. Me too. I can help with fundraising, with events, with whatever you need. Jonathan finally lifted his head, meeting Isabella's eyes. I do not have much to offer beyond bad decisions in the past, he admitted. But I can learn. I can try to become someone my father would have been proud of. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. The Montgomery family, who had arrived as a cluster of greedy individuals united only by blood and the expectation of wealth, became something else, a true family, bound not by obligation, but by a shared purpose and a desire for redemption. Theodore Wellington watched with a rare smile touching his lips. He understood that Edward had achieved something far deeper than a simple transfer of wealth. He had forced his family to confront their own souls and, in the process, they found not the money they wanted, but the character they had lost. In the months that followed, the Edward Montgomery Foundation became real, not as a monument to a man's wealth, but as a testament to the transforming power of genuine love. Isabella continued to live in her simple apartment, now surrounded by an extended family that respected and admired her. And the greatest irony was this: by losing the financial inheritance, the Montgomerys finally found the inheritance that truly mattered, the chance to become better people, to honor their father's memory not through possessions, but through actions that reflected the lessons he tried to teach in life. Edward Montgomery, in his final wisdom, understood the deepest truth about wealth, that it holds real value only when used to forge true connections, to ease loneliness, to spread the selfless love Isabella gave him. In that understanding, he left not only a fortune, but a legacy that would continue to touch lives long after the last dollar was spent. The true inheritance, they all learned, was not what we receive, but who we become through what we give to others.